United Democratic Movement in Gauteng, reportedly in talks with other parties ahead of the Wednesday vote. Independent Online is reporting that UDM is negotiating with Operation Dudula for an alliance, but an announcement on this has been halted for now. UDM Gauteng Premier candidate Mthunzi Mdwaba joins us for more on that conversation. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I think a lot of people were anticipating who will you be in alliance with. I suppose that particular announcement having to be put in abeyance for now. But it was last year, I suppose, 23rd or 24th of April, when the leader of UDM made this call and made a proposal. It was before your time, but I don't know if you have had any look at it, of opposition parties in principle forming alliances that would have to attract more votes, especially coming from the ANC constituency, and erode the power base of the ANC, essentially. Did that conversation gain traction within the party?
You know, I'm not certain how much traction that conversation had. What I do know, though, is that the UDM made a decision that any coalition-related conversations would have to wait till after the elections. Certainly because it became very important that we are able to assess the kind of value alignment that we would have with those parties that we seek to coalesce with. Yeah. And that for us is very important because moral regeneration and making sure that we stay true to who we are and what we promise to our constituents is very important. But what did also happen, quite separate from that, is that when there were new parties that were new entrants to the democratic elections, there were some challenges by small parties. They experienced, I guess, a lack of support from the IEC. This is what they alleged. The UDM, through our president, President Holomisa, and I'm told, together with the ATM, convened, these parties, these small parties, to try and assist them, appealed to the IEC to say, listen, you've got to find a way that is a bit, friendlier in addressing new people who are not as well initiated as the old parties. Apparently, this plea fell on deaf ears because soon after the president had announced the date of the election, for example, everybody was rushed, everybody was given like a few days to register, and some of these parties ended up really falling by the wayside. And now what has happened is that we've then had engagements with some of these parties, especially in the aftermath of their having gone to court and losing the license to contest the elections. Right. And the UDM, because we've played this supportive role to new entrants, young parties, in the interest really of democracy being broadened and making sure that everybody gets to, represent their communities and the people that are their membership base. We've then been quite inundated with conversations with some parties. But again, even though these are not coalition conversations, right, and a strategic alliance conversations, some of them necessitated by the fact that now all of a sudden they've got members, yeah, they've campaigned.
Yeah, but they've been removed off the ballot.
They've been removed. So, yeah, so that's what we've been doing in the last week, 10 days.
And did Operation Dudula express that confidence in the leader of UDM as a credible leader that they could certainly partner with one, two, that they feel they could be able to bring significant number of votes for, especially in your case, make impact in the Gauteng province? Well,
firstly, I'm happy that when you explained Independent Online is the one that informed you, because I didn't want it being me, because we had a very dramatic afternoon in that we expected to announce this afternoon the president, in fact, of Operation Dudula, we were told, had missed a flight earlier on, but had caught a flight eventually, was on her way to the media conference. Then, just, a few minutes before the media conference was to start, we were then told that they were dealing with some internal matters that they had not foreseen, apparently. This is after we'd had an agreement, everything is structured. But one of the issues they are having, we seem to believe, is that there's another party that they befriended during the IEC squabbles and the court challenges, and they feel that they would want to come with that party to us.
Okay.
Which is a good thing for us. So we should be, I suppose, disappointed that this afternoon didn't go the way we wanted it, but excited at the prospect of what is possible, which will only possibly reveal itself tomorrow. But to your question, Operation Dudula spent a lot of time assessing the situation with us, looking at where we've been, where we are now, and we believed that certainly the leadership of Operation Dudula satisfied itself that we are the party they would want to partner with for a number of issues-based reasons. We actually outlined some issues that we felt we could address together, and from that exchange, then the leadership felt that the UDM is the home they would want to work with.
So, I mean, I'm asking that because, of course, in 2022, the leader of UDM wrote an open letter to the president on the question of UDM, of Dudula in particular.
Yes.
Saying in that letter, well, illegal immigrants are holding the country hostage.
Yes.
Is that still the position of UDM?
That is the position. You know, I've been asked this question a number of times, and I have really emphatically, on behalf of the UDM in Gauteng, which is really the message we're giving throughout the country, that we cannot have illegal immigration. You know, to the point where we've been very surprised that there are parties that actually say open the borders. For us, that's been very curious as to say, how do you say open the borders and yet you still want to make sure that South Africa is able to have a peaceful coexistence of its people and so on. And so that is still the position with us. We believe that immigration is a good thing. Immigration is good for all of us. It's good for many big cities in the world. It doesn't have to be Johannesburg. It could be New York. It could be Lagos. It could be everywhere. But the reality, though, is that we have a lot of illegality that relates to immigration, and it brings about a lot of elements that are not good for us. We end up having our people being labeled as being xenophobic, but the reality is that there's been some form of evidence that shows that these unidentified or unidentifiable people who come through the dark, wherever they come from, tend to be in the middle of a lot of criminal activity in our country, tend to cause a lot of unhappiness in the country. So that is the position.
And how do you plan to get around the tactics of Operation Dudula, which many find quite problematic?
What are these tactics?
So others would call them a vigilante group. There are some who are facing legal action, actually, some of them in terms of, you know, illegally evicting people and so on and so forth, others for hate speech, others for physical violence. And so
yes,
tactics not necessarily, one would say, would want to be associated with UDM. I don't know.
You know, there's a saying that bad news tend to travel faster than good news. I'm advised, I have no independent knowledge of this, that, you know, there's been some mischievousness as well in the reporting of this so-called vigilante actions. But what we did do, though, was that as we went into the conversations, we first talked about how, as the home that these partners of ours are coming to, because you know, part of the reality of the IEC activity and the challenges they had in court is that Operation Dudula, for example, can only operate, can contest elections in Gauteng, in the Western Cape, and in Limpopo. They can't contest the other 6 provinces. That's where then we come in handy, because they would then work with us, their people would then support the UDM, and then the 3 provinces that they're contesting, we would have an issue-based kind of relationship, partnership, and so on. But as part of, you know, setting out those issues, one of the things we had to talk about is how, as the UDM, we like to operate, that we would like to know that if we're going to work together, there's a particular manner and modus operandi of how we want to do things. It starts with us being very clear that the message is not lost in translation, that it's illegal immigration we have a problem with, just in case there is some semblance of uncertainty.
Especially somebody like you who has plied his trade overseas. It would be strange for you to not want other people to come to South Africa.
And it would be strange for me even more, because these are the things I dealt with, issues of migration, issues of mobility of skills and all of that. It would be strange in the extreme. So we were able to agree about a modus operandi. We were able to agree that, in the UDM, and really we found this was not a difficult thing with Operation Dudula. We want to have conversations. We want to influence policy. It's very important for us. And that's why we have been so active in campaigning and growing our base as the UDM, so that, we're not just big in terms of action, of fighting also corruption and being anti-corruption agents, as we are now known, but we're also big as operators who sit in the multiplicity of portfolio committees as well, to be able, which is why we're going big this time, and in fact, everything is going well, to tell you the truth, much better than we thought it would. So we agreed on those kind of basics, and once we'd agreed those basics, we then drafted a proper arrangement agreement. There's an agreement in place, signed by the president of Operation Dudula, President Zandisile, and so we're comfortable.
So as we sit now, it's that consultation that they need to do with these other partners, and I suppose thereafter inform their broader national leadership and their members. As soon as that is done, it seems you're good to go.
Well, it seems there's some internal stuff as well they need to do in terms of some provinces, and then this other party that we already sort of know their identity, but I'm not at liberty to mention the identity of this party. And suffice to say that both parties were involved in this IEC court action kind of stuff. So we believe, especially with the letter that we received, explaining that the challenges we had this afternoon were unfortunate, and it's something that, they apologize for, and we'll be hearing from them as of tomorrow. So we are waiting with a bated breath for tomorrow, and hopefully we shall have an alliance with these colleagues of ours.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
There. Your views and your thoughts on a UDM Operation Dudula Alliance for the May 29 elections, 072-110-5584. Would like to get your thoughts on that. More news after the break. Stay with us.